GavGoesIn podcast. Guys, listen, I wasn't going to do this stream, but I thought, you know what? There's a few things that need to be spoken, and as you guys can see, in that thumbnail, Moises Caicedo overlooked for player of the season. And guys, what I'm gonna do, okay, because I've got a massive feeling as to why I think this has happened, and this is what I mean about this country in terms of the biasness and players that they're trying to put into your thinking. And as I said, guys, I've done some digging, I've done some I've got some stats together, because I know what I'm seeing with my eyes in terms of big up DJ Sav, big up. I've got some stats that I've been digging through, as I said, and I know what I'm seeing with my eyes, and I'm gonna go through the stats of the certain players that are in direct comparison with Moises Caicedo, and I'm gonna let you guys figure out for yourself, because as I said, I'm fully aware, and I have been aware of what the media in this country, the pundits, I'm aware of what these people do, and I'm going to show you how much of a joke that Caicedo not being included into the team of the season has been set up for me on purpose, Big up DXR, big up to Sham, big up guys for coming on. So, guys, again, if you've got any comments to make sure you put it in the chat, but we're going to get into this, So, if those of you that haven't seen the player of the season nominees, and we're going to go through all the names, but I'm going to dig into a certain few players that are in direct comparison with Moises Caicedo, So, we've got Morgan Gibbs-White, that was nominated, Ryan Gravenberch, Bryan Mbuemo, Virgil van Dijk, obviously Mo Salah, Alexander Isak, Chris Wood, and Declan Rice. Yeah, DXR, bro, no worries. Big up Barbara Joseph as well for coming on. So yeah, they're all the nominations, guys, for the player of the season, but no Moises Caicedo, which, to be honest with you, I cannot believe, because just watching with my own eyes, not only has he been the best central midfielder in the league this season, for me, he's been one of the best players in the league this season. And again, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but I can respect talent, and I can respect when players are, have had a good season. And for sure, I haven't seen one game from Chelsea where I would say Caicedo hasn't played well. And that's even when he's been playing at right back this season as well, So the fact that he's not even been included in the player of the season, I don't want people thinking, Caicedo hasn't been included because he ain't good enough, or there was players that were better than him. He hasn't been included in this list because there is something higher up that has not included him, and I'm gonna tell you why. So if we go through Morgan Gibbs-White, okay. Morgan Gibbs-White as a player, I think he's actually a good player, Do I think he should have been in the nominations above the likes of Yuri Tillemans? No. Morgan Rogers? No. Sandro Tonali? No. And there's probably Alexis McAllister. There's probably a few other players, that I would say had a right to be in there. Obviously Nottingham Forest having a good season, which is why there's two players from Nottingham Forest in there. For me, player of the season should just be who are the best players, that have performed, and you put them in. So I'm not gonna go through too much of the other names. So the likes of Isak, Mo Salah, and Ryan Gravenberch, Virgil van Dijk, there's no argument for me that them guys should be in there. Obviously, Liverpool won the league. Isak's again one of the top scorers in the league and had a very good season. And also Bryan Mbuemo deserves a mention. You can arguably say Johan Vissa deserves to be mentioned as well. But Mbuemo, for me, there's no argument, So then we come to Chris Wood. Again, Chris Wood, big up to 8 Ball the Snitch. It is. big up. So if we look at Chris Wood, you know, again, Nottingham Forest having a very good season. You know, it looks like they might just miss out on the Champions League places. But Chris Wood has scored a few goals. And I think his one is more for a sympathy vote, I would say. Because if we're looking at just purely the best football players that have performed, you're not really looking at a Chris Wood. But based on the season that Nottingham Forest have had and the goals that he scored, fair enough. Yeah? But then there's, again, Gibbs White, who I think, again, just like Chris Wood, has had a good season, you know. But let's face it, Gibbs White is put in that list because he's English, you know, and because as a number 10, as what he's been playing, he's more of a passion merchant number 10 in terms of he isn't your traditional number 10, you know. He has got quality on the ball, Gibbs White, but he's more of a workaholic number 10, I would say. Big up Exedra. Big up to Sham as well. So as I said, he's more of a workaholic number 10, Morgan Gibbs White. So what this media does, you know, again, they've played into the passion merchant things that, you know, a lot of English players seem to be getting away with, you know, because how Gibbs White is in this player this season talk, but Morgan Rogers is not. And I know Morgan Rogers is in the under 21s, the young player of the nominees. But how Morgan Rogers is not in the senior and Morgan Gibbs White is, again, doesn't make sense. And for me, Gibbs White's in there, and again, he's a good player, but he's a passion merchant, you know, and they've somehow found a way of getting him in, you know. But the one that I want to talk about, and again, I'm going to go through the stats, yeah, is Declan Rice, you know, because how Declan Rice is got in this player of the season nominee is nothing short of a joke, you know. And again, it's another thing where the media in this country, you know, the pundits will put him in there because he's English, you know. And I'm gonna go through the numbers, guys, because again, as you know, I'm not as Executive says, Declan Rice, yeah. As you guys, as you would see if you've been watching my channel, I'm someone that I tend not to get the stats involved because again, as I've mentioned, big up Daniela as well. As I mentioned, I like to watch the game with my own eyes. And from what I've been seeing, Moises Caicedo, as I've already mentioned, has definitely been one of the best midfielders, if not the best players in the Premier League this season. So when I see the list, I was shocked to see him not in there, okay? But I'm going to go through the numbers, guys. So we're going to start off on Declan Rice, and then we're going to go through Caicedo and Gravenberch, and then we're going to compare to see who tops the list. So again, I've gone through the stats, guys, in terms of midfield positions, central midfield, and what midfielders are going to excel in the league for this season, you know. And guys, if you do like the content, as I said, it doesn't take much to ask. Just make sure you smash that like button to try and help the channel grow. And obviously gone past the 1K barrier. As I said, if you do enjoy the content, press of that button, just smash that like. And again, if you haven't subscribed already, just make sure you subscribe, okay? So Declan Rice, again, in comparison to Moises Caicedo and to Ryan Gravenberch, has been playing more of as an advanced midfielder, you know? So obviously I put the goals and assists on there, which we would expect him to be topping the chart out of these two players, as he has been the more progressive one. So Declan Rice, 3 goals and 7 assists. In the league. Big chances created, 16. Through balls, 4. Tackles, 52, with a success rate of 46%. Interceptions, 25. Clearances, 43. Ball recoveries, 143. Duels won, 112. Successful 50-50s, 13. And then we've got the aerial battles, 1, 32. And then we've got the errors leading to goals, which is 0. Yeah? Then we move on to Moises Caicedo. And again, guys, as I said, I've gone through all the important stats that the midfielders obviously will be excelling at. You know, obviously they might be in heavy favour of some of the others because, again, if you're looking at goals and assists, you probably expect Declan Rice to have slightly more because Declan Rice is playing more of an attacking position than what Caicedo and Gravenberch are. And obviously, again, he's on corners. So you would expect him to have more numbers. So Moises Caicedo in the league, 1 goal, 2 assists. Again, not great, but been playing more as a defensive player this season. Big chances created, 5. Through balls, 12. Tackles, 107. Tackles success rate, 63%. Interceptions, 49. Clearances, 50. Ball recoveries, 211. Duels won, 224. Duels lost, 156. Sorry, we'll leave that duels lost. Just concentrate on duels won, 224. Successful 50-50s, 27. Aerial battles won, 36. And then errors leading to goals, 0. So again, that's the stats for Caicedo. Then we move on to Ryan Gravenberch. Again, goals 0, which is surprising. But if you know the way that he's been operating in that Liverpool midfield, he's been the deepest lying playmaker, you would say. Yeah. Assists 4. Big chances created 3. And again, Gravenberch is capable of producing bigger numbers. But the thing is, he's playing slightly deeper in his role. Yeah. Tackles 67, a success rate of 52%. Interceptions 57. Clearances 55. Ball recoveries 185. Duels won 176. Successful 50-50s 36. Aerial battles 26. And again, errors leading to goals 0. Guys, I will get back to your questions, to your comments. Just let me just go through this, but we'll definitely get back to them. But big up yourselves anyway. So again, all 3 players, 0 errors leading to goals, you know, which is impressive to be fair. But guys, I'm going to go through now, okay, who tops the charts and who's been left out. Because, you know, people, as I said, people might think, you know, certain players deserve to be in there. But as I said, with my own eyes, I know Caicedo should have been there. Probably just like many others. But the actual key stats in terms of what a midfielder offers backs this up as well. So goals and assists, as I said earlier, Declan Rice top stat. You know, the most progressive midfielder out of all 3 of them. So that's understandable. Yeah. Big chances created. Declan Rice as well. Yeah. Then we go to through balls. Moises Caicedo. Tackles. Moises Caicedo. Tackle success. Moises Caicedo. Interceptions. Ryan Gravenberch. Clearances. Ryan Gravenberch. Ball recoveries. Moises Caicedo. Duels won. Moises Caicedo. Successful 50-50s. Ryan Gravenberch. Aerial battles. Moises Caicedo. Okay. So if we do the numbers, guys, Ryan Gravenberch, Declan Rice, 3 apiece. Moises Caicedo, 6. Yeah? So, guys, I had to do these stats because, as I said, I knew Caicedo should have been nominated, you know, and when he wasn't nominated, I had to look at these stats, as I say, and see, you know, what are these people actually looking at? And as you guys have just heard, Moises Caicedo tops the majority of the stats, but he's the one that gets left out of the nominations. Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you why that is. Okay, and make sure you guys are listening. Okay, because again, if you don't agree with me, feel free to put it in the chat, and if you do, you know, as I say, it's for you. So if we look at Ryan Gravenberch, you know, as we said, Arne Slot's coming to Liverpool. You know, this is a Gravenberch that wasn't playing regularly under Klopp as well. And obviously the way that Slot likes to play with his playmaker, the deepest line playmaker, Gravenberch suits that role seamlessly. You know, very comfortable on the ball, you know, can progress the ball, you know, is tenacious as well in the tackle, and is perfect for that position for Arne Slot's team. Now, bearing in mind, Liverpool won the league as well, and Ryan Gravenberch has been one of the best midfielders this season in the league. It's obvious to say why he was chosen, you know, and I, for one, have no problem with that because, as I say, this is a player that I wanted Man United to sign before he even went to Liverpool from Bayern Munich. Even before Bayern Munich at Ajax, I wanted Gravenberch to. I wanted Man United to sign Gravenberch, but his loss is Man United's loss is Liverpool's gain. Yeah, so definitely he deserved the nomination for Player of the Season. Now, having a look at that list, there's only 2 central midfielders in this list, with one of them being Ryan Gravenberch. Now, as I said already, Moises Caicedo, for me, and probably for many others, has been the best midfielder in the league this season. So, the fact that Declan Rice is in there and Caicedo's not, you know, people might point towards the fact of Arsenal are second in the league, you know, but I don't buy that, because if Arsenal's second in the league, then why is another player, I know William Saliba's in the young player, but surely another player from Arsenal would have been in the nominations. You know, there isn't. And the fact there's only 2 midfielders, one of them being Gravenberch, and you can't argue with that because Liverpool won the league. We're assuming it definitely has to be Moises Caicedo, you know. But they've put Declan Rice in there. And why is that? And guys, as I said, you know, you can disagree with me, but I'm someone that has been clocked onto these things for time. Declan Rice has only been put in that list because why? He's white and English. It's as simple as that, you know. And the reason I say that, guys, is because if you look at Ryan Gravenberch, he has to be in there because Liverpool won the league, and Declan Rice was put in there purely because he's English, you know. And the fact that he's obviously white as well, that's the obvious thing that I can look at why he's there, because there's no reason why he should be there. And I think what's happened as well is that people have probably looked at the fact that he scored 2 goals, 2 free kicks in the Champions League, which has nothing to do with the Premier League, and for somehow his name has managed to be relevant in this Player of the Season conversation, you know. And again, Declan Rice is a decent player, but the way this country have hyped up Declan Rice is a joke, really. And the fact that he's in this, because let's face it, if we put Ryan Gravenberch to the side, let's focus on Moises Caicedo. They've basically put Declan Rice in the team ahead of Moises Caicedo. That's what it comes down to, because how he's not in there, Caicedo, doesn't make any sense, you know. And the numbers prove it, you know. And we can't start saying that because Arsenal was second, because they're not even guaranteed to finish second. Because if Newcastle beat them, then Arsenal moved down to third. Yeah. So as I said, this whole Declan Rice being in the nominations, you know, is nothing short to do with biasness from the media, the Premier League itself, you know. And this is even more reason as to why, you know, the football in this country is an absolute joke, you know. The pundits, you know, the media, the whole PR around certain things are an absolute joke. And this has just been proved. Because again, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but how he's not been nominated, you know, doesn't make sense. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. You know, so I implore people to just, you know, have a think and see, you know, if you think I'm wrong, then fair enough. Make sure you put that in the chat and let me know why you think I'm wrong. But I can tell you now that I'm not wrong, because again, I've clocked onto a lot of these things. Because if I look at the 2 players that are English that are in this nominations for Player of the Season, you've got one who's light skinned, who's a passion merchant, and you've got one who's white with a side parting, who's English. You know, and if you guys think this isn't being done on purpose, then think again, because as I said, there's only 2 midfielders that have been chosen from this list. One of them had to be Gravenberch, and the other one, they couldn't let it be Caicedo. And you guys need to work out why that is, because again, I've clocked onto this, and I will always say my piece on things like this, because it's embarrassing, you know. And again, the stats prove it, why Caicedo should have been there, you know. And even if you look at Declan Rice, it's not like Declan Rice excelled over Gravenberch, who had to be in there, because Gravenberch won the league with Liverpool, and it's obvious he goes in there. But he's not like he's even excelling over Gravenberch. He's tied with him. But Caicedo, who doesn't get nominated, has 6. And guys, again, I've done the numbers in terms of the key ones for midfielders. Because obviously we could have gone on other things, but I've done the ones which are relatable to midfielders. And as I said, Moises Caicedo tops it by 6. So who do I think is going to win the player of the season? Again, it's irrelevant really, because Mo Salah is going to win it. He's going to win it because of his numbers. And again, he's only 2 short of breaking the record of the most GA in one season. So again, all these other players that I've mentioned, it's irrelevant because Mo Salah will win it. But I'm more focused on the fact that, again, not being a Chelsea fan, why Caicedo was overlooked. And because there's only 2 midfielders in there, he was overlooked for Declan Rice, basically. That's what it comes down to. But the stats prove otherwise, But yeah, guys, big up yourselves. Again, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, then please put it in the chat and let's discuss this, because, as I said, I'm caught onto it. I'm going to go through your chats anyway. As Sham said, Caicedo is Chelsea's player of the season. 100%. He's not only Chelsea's player of the season. For me, with Mo Salah, because of the numbers, he's up there for being the player of the season. There's no doubt in that, And I implore anyone to say to me that Moises Caicedo doesn't deserve to be rated as in the player of the season. You know what I mean? Because again, I've not watched every single Chelsea game, but the games that I have watched, he's always been their best player. And again, I expect him today to be, one of their top players, against Man United today. Let's go through. So Sham says Gravenberch has been nominated, so Caicedo should be in it too, and that's coming from a Liverpool fan. Listen, there's no shame in saying that. As I said, Gravenberch was definitely going to be nominated, and I have no problem Gravenberch being nominated because, as I said, he won the league with Liverpool. But to think that Caicedo wasn't even in the nominations, doesn't make any sense. And as I said, we have to look at, there's something sinister going on from higher above, because the fact that he's not even in the nomination doesn't make any sense to me, But if you're switched on, guys, you'll know what's happening anyway. Let's see. So big up to DJ Sav J. Says 100% bro. Caicedo should have been there. For me, he is better than Declan Rice. This is not because I am Chelsea fan. I'm saying this. Bro, listen, there's no disgust or surprise to say that Caicedo is better than Declan Rice. Caicedo is better than Declan Rice, Again, when Caicedo was bought for, obviously breaking the record at 115 million, I think it was, a lot of people turn up their nose to say, how can he cost that? But then when Declan Rice was bought for 100 million, you had people out here saying it's a good deal, So, again, there's no shame in saying Caicedo is better than Declan Rice, because he is, and anyone with 2 functioning eyes will tell you that, And I think what's happened with Declan Rice is that the Real Madrid free kicks has got everyone hyped up, gassed. But what did he do against PSG? And again, Declan Rice is a decent player, but just like this country is typical, they just overhype the players, and they overhype them to a level where they're disrespecting European players, other European players, And as I said, how he's managed to get himself as a nominee this season and the likes of a Caicedo's not in there, again, serious questions have to be asked. And as I said, man, he's better than him, definitely. And as you said, this is Caicedo who's been playing at right back, So, and even when he plays at right back, you don't see many players getting past him at right back, and he adds another dimension to their team. So this is how good he is. Very adaptable, and again, I keep saying it. How he's not being nominated is a joke, absolute joke. And Exedra says it as well. So I mentioned it. Sandro Tonali. Sandro Tonali for me is Newcastle's best midfielder. I know a lot of people might think it's Bruno Guimaraes, but Tonali for me is their best midfielder, and he's miles better than Declan Rice. You know what I mean? Miles better. I think Declan Rice is a box-to-box midfielder, you know, and again, because he's playing in England, fans just get excited at someone that's just running all over the place, you know. I've never understood football in a sense where people rate players that are just runners. Like, I've never seen it, you know. And as I said, with Tonali, you know, very comfortable in possession, you know, tenacious. He's got a great pass on him, great shot on him, and has been instrumental in that Newcastle team going into Sunday's game against Arsenal. If they win that, going second. But again, he's not been nominated. You know, they might say because of the whole betting scandal, you know, which is a load of nonsense, just put the best players in. And how he was overlooked for Declan Rice, again, is a joke, you know. So, ridiculous. Let's go through it. Big up to Duck. Yeah, big up for coming on. So Gamer says, I'm looking forward to the Man United versus Chelsea game tonight. I hope you get something out of it. No chance. No chance. I think the fact that the game's at Stamford Bridge, you know, the fact that United have the Europa League obviously on the horizon as well, you know, I think everything's in Chelsea's favour to win that game. However, if Chelsea don't win this game, they're going to be in serious trouble. You know, I was obviously told today as well that that no matter what happens, Maresca's going to be there next season, regardless if they get Champions League football or win the Conference League, which I think is madness. I think Champions League should be the minimum requirement for Chelsea with the amount of money they've spent. But I expect them to beat United today, definitely. You know, especially being at home. I know they got no Nicholas Jackson, but I think Pedro Neto will play through the middle, and I think they'll have too much to for United. And again, United are not going to play their strongest team, you would think. So I think definitely they win that game. So DJ Sav says, a must-win for my team tonight. I will be at Bridge, as always, because we are home. United will still be tough if Bruno starts. He's always causing problems for us, but we have to win due to Champions League qualification. Well, what I would say there, you mentioned Bruno Fernandes. I think the Bruno Fernandes causes us problems. I don't think that's true, you know. So I agree with what you're saying. It is a must-win at home. But yeah, I personally think if I'm looking at the result, I'm gonna say Chelsea win 2-0. I think if United play their strongest team, which will be or near enough their strongest team, which I think will be a problem, I can still see Chelsea win the game, and I think 2-0. If they change their team and a lot of the youngsters play, I'll go one better and say 3-0. You know, I said the same thing yesterday, and I'm going to stick to that. I don't think United score today. You know, I don't think they score, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think Chelsea win the game. That's for sure. You know. Big up Exedra. I wouldn't say it's a colour thing, but it definitely is a PR and a coverage thing. Rashford would be the example I point to. And again, Exedra, big up yourself for your comment. And the fact that you're saying it's not a colour thing, again, it's your opinion. But I just want to say, I've been someone that has been, before I had a platform, I've always been looking out for things like this. So when you're saying it's not a colour thing, I disagree. And I'll tell you why I disagree. Because the fact that there's only two midfielders that are in that list, in Gravenberch and Declan Rice, you know, Gravenberch is black. That's the first thing. And Liverpool won the league. So he was always going to be put in there. Yeah. Which I have no problem with, because if Liverpool would have finished third, Gravenberch wouldn't be a certainty to be in there. Yeah. But the fact that Liverpool won the league, again, there's no issue that he's in there. Yeah. The fact that Declan Rice has some way found himself there, no one can tell me it's not because he's white and English, because that is what's happened. Because there's no argument to say Declan Rice should be in there ahead of Moises Caicedo. That's the thing. Because Sandro Tonali wasn't nominated. Yuri Tillemans, again, wasn't nominated. Yeah, which, fair enough. But Moises Caicedo had to be in there. And the fact that Declan Rice has got himself in there, you know, I'm telling you this now, if it was Thomas Partey, again, who's been Arsenal's best midfielder this season, why is Thomas Partey not nominated, but Declan Rice is? Work it out for yourself. I'm telling you, like, you might think it's not, but I've been onto these things for time, you know, and I've been onto these things because of Man United as well, which I won't go into, but Man United have had a history of these certain things, you know. So when you're saying it's not, I disagree. But big up yourself for your comment anyway. Declan gets the PR, and that's why. So again, the PR has played a massive part in it, but it isn't only just that. It's the PR, and it's because he's white and English. That's a fact, you know. And as I said, I'm not saying this because I'm just saying something. That is the fact, because it's Moises Caicedo has no right to not be in there. You know, he should definitely have been in there. And the fact that Declan Rice is in there, again, you can work that one out. But big up yourself anyway. So Nathan says he's clearly not better than Dijk. So the fact that you're saying Dijk, that means you must know him personally. So I'm not even going to take that seriously. Or unless you're just trying to, like, say his nickname because you fancy him or something like that. But as I said, if you think he's not better than Declan Rice, then I'm sorry to tell you, man, he is. And what's your basis for saying that he's not better than Declan Rice? Like, what are you basing it off? Because I've already given you the stats for this season, and Caicedo tops the stats out of any midfielder. Yeah? So to say he's not better than Dijk, as you said, tell me why you think that, because he's not. So then you're saying he's got a much higher passing success rate. He's got more goals and assists. Yeah. So again, you see, guys, this is the problem, you know, and when you get people coming into the chat and they're talking about numbers as why someone is better than another player, again, it shows me that this guy Nathan has no clue on what he's talking about. Yeah. Is there a surprise why Declan Rice has more goals and assists? He's playing as the most progressive midfielder out of him, Gravenberch, and Caicedo. So is there any surprise why he's got more goals and assists? There isn't. He's playing high up the pitch. And not to mention as well, he's on corners. Gravenberch and Caicedo are not on corners. So Declan Rice has a more higher chance of getting more assists. You know? So the fact that this guy is saying he's got more goals and assists and has a much higher passing success rate, again, it just shows me that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's just trying to just big up Declan Rice without having a basis to back anything up, you know. I could see Villa qualifying. It's very tough. I think Villa win tonight against Tottenham. I think Tottenham changed their team as well, and I would say that if Villa win tonight, I think them Champions League places is going to go down to the last game of the season. I think Villa have got who Villa have got last? Oh, Villa got Man United last game of the season. Obviously Chelsea got Nottingham Forest. You know, Newcastle have got Everton. So again, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to get them places. But yeah, it'd be going to the wow. So Gamer says, would you rather have Tonali or Declan Rice? Tonali every day of the week. Like, Tonali, again, before Tonali come to Newcastle, Tonali was rated as one of the best young players in the world when he was at Brescia and then went to AC Milan. Again, Man United were linked to Tonali before he went to AC Milan when he was at Brescia, you know. So to say, is Tonali better than Declan Rice? He is. Like, and again, anyone that thinks Declan Rice is better than Tonali hasn't really seen enough of Tonali, because Tonali is one of the best midfielders in the league easily, you know, and that's not even a debate for me. Like, he's Newcastle's best midfielder, even though they might tell you it's Bruno Guimaraes, but it's not. It's Sandro Tonali, and I know he's been suspended, but this guy's a top player, man. So yeah, but big up anyway. Gamer says, you said no way. Imagine if they win, I would laugh. But with joy, realistic, I see this definitely will beat Chelsea to win tonight. Need more. Yeah, Chelsea will win, man. I've no doubt about that. So Exedra says Thomas Partey has those allegations that hang over him, to be fair. But yeah, Rice on there is scandalous. Again, you see all these scandals like what Sandro Tonali had, what Thomas Partey. is allegedly meant to have as well. That has no bearing on the best player. This is my point. You know, these things shouldn't be shouldn't be talked about when we're talking about the best player of the season. Them things should be put separate. And again, Thomas Partey has been Arsenal's best midfielder, but yet he doesn't make it, but Declan Rice does. And again, if Declan Rice was from, I don't know, Iceland, or if he was from, I don't know, Angola, Declan Rice doesn't get nominated. That's my point. He's only been nominated because he's English. Like, let's just keep it real. That is what it is, you know. So Gamer says, what is your score prediction for tonight? I've already said it. 2-0 Chelsea. I'll go with 2-0. So Nathan has said, except he's not. Almost every stat I'm looking at, Dek is better. What are you waffling? Right. So again, I'll just give you the stats for what a midfielder is crucial for being a midfielder. Yeah. So I'll run it through again, Nathan, just to make you aware. Yeah. So if we're looking at assists and goals, as we know, Declan Rice is going to be ahead on assists and goals. Why? Because he's playing the most progressive, the most advanced out of himself, Caicedo and Gravenberch, because they're both playing deep line. So you would expect him to have more numbers. Not to mention he's a corner taker for Arsenal as well, which will make him get more assists, he's more liable to get more assists. Yeah. But then if we look at all the other stats that a midfielder excels at, again, the big chances created, again, that's a flawed stat because they're not saying what these big chances are. But nonetheless, Declan Rice heads that as what is to be expected. But if we're looking at through balls, tackles success rate, Caicedo wins that in all three. If we're looking at interceptions and clearances, Gravenberch wins that. If we're looking at ball recoveries and duels won, Caicedo wins that. If we're looking at successful 50-50s, Gravenberch wins that. If we're looking at the aerial duels, Caicedo wins that. So I'm not sure what stats you're going off, but I've looked at the stats today, and again, I don't need stats to know that Caicedo has performed better anyway. But I just put them in because I had to see what these people were going off, you know. So the fact that you're saying Declan Rice wins at every stat, that's a complete lie. So I don't believe you on that one. Exedra says Lamine Yamal only has 8 goals, 13 assists season in La Liga. Exedra, there you go. You just answered my point. You know, this is an era that we're in now where people just talk about stats, and Nathan as well has just more or less told you that because his whole thing is Declan Rice is beating him in every stat, even though he's not. But this is all he cares about, you know. Lamine Yamal only has 8 goals and 13 assists, but he's the best player in the world, and no one can deny that. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. You know, the eye test will beat numbers any day of the week, you know. And I implore people to just get away from this numbers nonsense and just watch the game and look at the player itself, you know. So yeah, exactly as he said, just says GA stats merchants really need to calm down. I agree. Yeah, Nathan, you're not saying too much, man. As I said, like, so every stat I'm looking at, he's better than Tonali too. All right, Nathan, give me the stats. Put the stats in the chat if you're still on. Put the stats in there because I'm gonna sit you down because this is going by Sky Sports' stats, you know, of the ones that I've just read out, which are key ones. So put the stats that you're talking about, and then I can see whether you're telling the truth or not. Because I've done this morning. So executive said it's the same reason Ryan Giggs isn't in the Prem Hall of Fame. Yeah, obviously we know about Ryan Giggs, but as I said, I don't think we should be conflating outside issues with the best player. If we're talking about the best player of the season, regardless of what they've done, let's just focus on that because that's what it should be about. Otherwise, scrap the whole thing. That's what I would say. So Gamer says, bro, you know your football. You watch a lot live matches. I only get to watch when on BBC or ITV or just watch highlights after game. I only watch Newcastle live at the most times. Yeah, bro, big up yourselves, man. As I said, I'm not someone that claims to know everything. But when it comes to football, you know, there's not many things that I don't know about football because I'm invested in it. As I said, I've played it, I've coached it, I've watched it for years. So when it comes to certain things that I say, I can always have things to back it up. You know what I mean? And look, guys, listen, mods, do your job, man, because he's not serious, this Nathan. Why does Dijk have a higher value than them both? Like, yeah, you're not saying nothing, man. I only want to have positive conversations in there, and you're just coming on there. Doesn't make sense. But cold edit. So cold edits use Yamal or Messi. So Gamer says Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest prediction at City Ground. Oh, it's away from home. Bloody hell. Well, Nottingham Forest will need to win that game. Again, Nottingham Forest are playing West Ham, I think, on Saturday. No, sorry, on Sunday. And depending on that game, if Nottingham Forest was to win that game, they would need to beat Chelsea to get into the Champions League. But then again, Chelsea need to win tonight to have any chance. So what am I going to say for prediction? Tough. You know what? I'm going to go with because it's at the City Ground, I'm going to go with a 1-1. I'll go over 1-1. Because I'm thinking if Chelsea were at home, then I'd say Chelsea. But I think away from home, I'm going to say 1-1. For sure, yeah. Yeah, all right, Gamer, big up, man. Listen, yeah, big up, man. I don't, as I said, everyone's free to their opinion. But if we're going to come on there and just have, you know, an immature kind of thing on there, then I ain't got time for it. You know, I only want to have positive conversations. You know, I'm not saying for you to agree with me, but let's obviously debate it out. You know. So Gamer says, would you sign Rafinha with Dembele or just Yamal by himself? That's a bit of a weird one, but would you sign Rafinha with Dembele or just Yamal by himself? Well, it depends really, because it depends, because it depends what players I have at my disposal. Because if I've got a left winger that is, you know, that is someone that's gonna create or get goals, but I've got nothing on the right hand side, then I'll just go and buy Yamal. Yeah. As I said, guys, Yamal's the best player in the world, man. He's 17, best player in the world, without doubt. I mean, that goal yesterday against Espanyol, you know, there's only certain players that can do that. And he does that consistently. So it's not a fluke, you know what I mean? But Rafinha and Dembele have had great seasons, you know. But for me, yeah, Yamal's the truth, man. He's going to be dominating that Ballon d'Or for sure, man. Yeah, big up to Makin Newham. Guys, 10 likes on there. Let's try and get the likes up. And again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you do, guys. Big up yourselves each and every time. So Executive says Yamal is worth 3 forward players in today's market. You know what? That's not a bad shout, because I think it depends. I think if we look at football now, and in comparison to what's out there in terms of forward players, the only forward players really I'm taking, if I look around the world, that I think are, you know, elite level. If we look at Barcelona, Yamal. We look at Real Madrid. For me, Rodrigo. I'll say Vinicius Jr. I'll say Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr. Then if we go to PSG, Kvaratskhelia, Ousmane Dembele. I'm talking about attackers, yeah? Atletico Madrid. Would have been Anton Griezmann, but Griezmann's obviously getting on a bit now. PSG, I've said already, Kvaratskhelia and Dembele. Then we look at in Italy. No one in Italy for me. Then if we go to England, there's no attacking player that I would take over Yamal, I don't think. Germany, Florian Wirtz, Musiala, you could say. But yeah, as I said, so when we're saying Yamal's worth 3 forward players, I can see why you say that. But because the ones that I've named, they're the only players that I would, say maybe 3 forward players out of them 3 might be a bit too much. But yeah, there's no doubting that this guy's special, man. Yeah, listen, Dembele, man, he's like, again, guys, let me know if you think Dembele might be with a shout to win Ballon d'Or. Me personally, I'll give it to Yamal, but again, we know how these things work with the numbers, Obviously, Rafinha, I mean, he's got something like 50-something GA this season. Dembele's obviously in the final, has a chance of winning the treble as well. But for me, just give it to the best player, and that'll be Yamal. Yeah, he's generational, easily. As I say, he's a mix of Messi and Neymar for me. Left foot of Messi, but the arrogance to just, get on the ball and just, make things happen of Neymar. Listen, Rodrigo's a top player, man. He's been stifled at Real Madrid for sure, and he needs to move on. But he will cost a lot of money as well. But for me, he has to move on for the betterment of his career, as I said previously. But wherever he goes, he's gonna shine for sure. I mean, there is talk about Man City, Chelsea, and I tell you this now, guys. Man City are trying to get, as I mentioned to you guys previously, Florian Wirtz and Tijani Reinders. If they get those 2 players, the season's done, because Rodri's back, yeah, and if you got Reinders next to Rodri with Wirtz in the 10, and then they've got Savinho on the right with Oscar Bob coming back on the left. If they keep Grealish, Doku, obviously I don't rate him, but he's still there, and then they've got Omar Marmoush, who can play out there as well, and can play in the 10, and can play as a striker. And obviously Haaland up there as well. And then they still got likes of Foden as part of that squad as well. They're gonna take some stopping, And if there's to get a Rodrigo, which I can't see them getting Rodrigo, Wirtz, and Reinders. If that was to happen, I think for the next 5 seasons, we might as well just be patient with the league titles, because I don't see anyone winning league titles if they get them 3 players, because you're getting 3 of the best players in the world in their positions to go with what they've got and to go with Pep. So if that was to happen, I think these league seasons, yeah, we'll have to just say Man City winning that every season for me. Exedra, listen, I'm not sick and tired of watching another Liverpool Man City season, because the reason I say that is because of standards. This is what Man United are failing on, because these 2 teams don't accept nothing less than winning the title or going for the title. I think Chelsea are the only other club realistically that are a team that you could say do have standards, but there's no surprising why Liverpool, Man City are up there. Again, people will point to the fact that these guys spend money, but I look at in terms of, the standards that these teams have. The fact that I've mentioned to you guys already that this Ruben Amorim has a chance of staying at the club. You tell me what big club would accept that, So we'll have to wait and see on that one, though. Makim Nuem says, Rodrigo is a City or Arsenal type of player. We shouldn't interrupt that. Yeah, listen, I agree. I think in terms of the top clubs in the world, if we're talking about England, yeah, City's the ideal. He can play for an Arsenal. And again, if Arsenal want to go to the next level, which, again, they need to, then getting Rodrigo to play on that left-hand side is a massive upgrade on what they've got already. And then that's when you start looking at Arsenal as a team that will be fed, But until that happens, Arsenal just going to be a nearly club. And for me, this next season, I don't see Arsenal finishing second. So, yeah, that's what I would say. But yeah, I think the thing with Rodrigo, there was talk about him going to Barcelona, which ain't going to happen. But his next club, you know, you would have to believe it's going to be a Man City, you know. I think Man City's probably Man City or Chelsea, I think, are the only realistic options for Rodrigo. I don't see him going to Germany. Again, he's already in Spain at Real Madrid. So for me, you're looking at Man City or Chelsea for me. Yeah, I don't see Liverpool going in for him. And obviously Man United. Yeah, let's just move on. So they'll be singing 20 times at Anfield while we sing that stupid Amorim song. Yeah, listen, absolute disgrace. But as I said, we have to just wait until this Europa League, because I just want to watch this game. You know, I'm for Man United as a club. I want a trophy because it's what the club's been built on. But I just hope that Ineos don't think that this manager potentially winning a trophy is enough to keep him at the job, because I've seen too much of this manager and he ain't good enough. So we have to just wait and see what happens. But yeah, that's what I want to say. But guys, listen up. I'm not going to waste too much of your time, because I will be back later today at 10 o'clock doing the match reaction to Man United and Chelsea. So again, if you guys are free, make sure you guys come back and obviously get involved in the chat again at 10 o'clock. Big up DXR. Yeah, big up, bro. As I said, guys, if you think I'm wrong in what I've said today about Moises Caicedo and the fact that Declan Rice has been included in the team of the season, then let me know, guys. But as I said, I'm pretty sure that I'm not wrong, because I've been keeping an eye on these things for time. And as I said again, the fact that he wasn't included, you have to ask yourself why that is, you know. And again, I'm pretty sure of why that is, regardless of what even Nathan coming there said about the stats, because the stats that I've checked today, and you guys can go and have a check for yourself, Moises Caicedo, in the key ones for what a midfielder excels at, he tops each and every one. He tops the majority of them, you know. So as I said, if you want to go and have a look at that on Sky Sports, then have a look and let me know. But regardless of that, my eyes are telling me that Caicedo definitely should have been in that list. And how Declan Rice more or less has edged him is a joke. But if you're switched on, you know why that is. But guys, as I said, big up to each and every one of you. Just a couple of questions to go, comments to go through before we wrap. So Real Madrid performance put the spotlight on Rice. Yeah, exactly. I mentioned that earlier today. So the fact that he got the 2 free kicks against Real Madrid, it basically put him in the, as DXR has said, in the spotlight for him to get nominated for Player of the Season, even though it was in a totally different competition, you know. So the fact that that's happened, I think that's what swayed it. But again, I think Declan Rice was always going to be put in there. That's my point. But to think it was at the expense of Caicedo makes no sense whatsoever. And even Yuri Tillemans, as I said, Morgan Rogers should have been put in that nomination for the Player of the Season. Sandro Tonali, 100%. You know, even Bruno Guimaraes, you can even say as well. No, there's plenty of players that should have been put in that list ahead of Declan Rice, but he's in there because he's English. Let's just call it what it is. Gamer says, Evra said, watching Arsenal is like watching Netflix, always waiting for the next season to start. Yeah, 100%. That's probably one of the best things that Evra said of recent note, because more of the time I don't really listen to Evra, because I think he's on the club's payroll, because some of the things he comes out with, you know, I don't really agree with, but that's something I do. But yeah, guys, listen up. Big up to each and every one of you for coming on. Big up for interacting, obviously, in the chat as always. And guys, as I said, if you haven't smashed that like button, make sure you do. Help the channel to grow. And make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And check out, guys, my other content. You know, some good content on there. And as I said, I'll be back at 10 o'clock tonight, obviously doing the Man United match reaction with Chelsea. Hopefully, United can get a positive result. But something tells me that Chelsea will be going all out for this game, which they need to win. And as I said, I think, yeah, I think Chelsea get the win. You know, I'm going to say 2 or 3-0, but we'll have to wait and see. But guys, big up yourselves, and I'll catch you guys back at 10. Take it easy.